Footballers and athletes in general always put in a lot of work to help them stay fit and healthy. However, there were some footballers that unfortunately found themselves on the high side of the weight spectrum. These are the 10 great footballers who were out of shape. Number 10. Neil Ruddock. Neil Razor Ruddock, a hard man in the Premier League, played for Southampton, Tottenham, Liverpool and West Ham. He was so intense, he was voted the 17th hardest footballer of all time. Ruddock was a tough tackling centre-half and he earned 1 cap for England. He was renowned for his no-nonsense approach to the game and deadly left-footed strike. Although Ruddock has always been a big man who liked to throw his weight around, at the end of his career, his weight had gotten a little out of control. It is generally known that Ruddock struggled with his weight for much of his career, and some have speculated that this may be why he only received 1 England cap. Number 9. Thomas Brolin. Thomas Brolin is undoubtedly one of the most well-known overweight football players from the Premier League era. Brolin arrived in England in 1995 as a superstar and left as a joke 3 years later. The Swedish international had excelled for his nation when they unexpectedly placed 3rd at the 1994 World Cup. The midfielder had also been joint top goal scorer during a 1992 European Championship appearance in the semi-final. In addition, Brolin won 4 trophies in 5 years at Parma and finished 4th in the 1994 Ballon d'Or voting. Brolin was signed by Leeds United in the hopes that he would offer them the innovative edge and spark they needed after enjoying great success with Parma and Sweden in the early 1990s. However, it didn't quite work out for them. He continued to appear in polls and votes, winning distinctions as the 2nd worst player in Premier League history and the worst player in Leeds United history, respectively. Before moving to Leeds in 1994, Brolin sustained a terrible injury from which he never fully recovered or was able to reach the necessary levels of fitness. Brolin left Leeds after receiving such harsh criticism and joined Crystal Palace, where he vowed to prove his fitness. He arrived looking like the bloated cardboard facsimile next to which Slimmers of the Year tend to pose, and played like it. A Guardian newspaper writer wrote he eventually had to retire at the age of 28. Coming in at number 8, William Folk. Folk, who cost £50 to buy from Sheffield United in 1905, was Chelsea's first ever goalkeeper. Folk was once referred to as the most talked about player on the planet. He was 6 feet 4 inches tall and, according to reports, weighed 152 kilograms or about 24 stone. And the businessman who founded Chelsea FC was counting on these physical attributes together with his skill as a goalie to draw in spectators. Folk apparently was the original victim of the well-known football chant "Who Ate All the Pies" during his early years at Sheffield United. Folk was often made fun of. However, his goalkeeping abilities were too great to ignore, as he would put in spectacular performances to help shut up opposition fans. He won the FA Cup twice and the First Division once with Sheffield United, and his achievements earned him an England cap. One of the most well-known stories concerning Folk's anger is the opening game of the 1902 FA Cup final. Folk chased after the referee, who had taken cover in a broom cupboard after the game because he was furious that Southampton's equaliser should not have been allowed. Folk attempted to rip the cabinet door off its hinges in order to reach the frightened referee and had to be stopped by a group of officials. Folk, who had a massive effect despite only having played for the Blues for 1 full season. And massive here is not a joke about his size. Folk's aggressive play, where he'd often pick up and throw bothersome strikers into his goal, delighted the crowds that gathered to watch the goalie. He was able to draw sizable audiences to Stamford Bridge, and the Chelsea leadership chose to take advantage of that after noticing his popularity. Number 7. Jan Molby. Jan Molby spent the 12 best years of his career playing for Liverpool, where he won 3 league titles, 3 FA Cups, 1 League Cup, and 4 Charity Shields, adding to the 2 titles he had previously won with Ajax in the Netherlands. But before that, he was a legend at Everton. He was technically outstanding, and Molby may have had a career that was even more spectacular if it wasn't for his weight problems, which plagued him throughout his career and were frequently attributed to his occasional inclination toward drinking. Number 6. Matt Letizia. Matt Letizia is one of the most technically gifted players to play in the Premier League. He didn't have a lot going for him in terms of physical characteristics, so it's a good thing he was. Letizia was nicknamed La God by Southampton fans, and he spent his whole career for the club, where he set a record as the first midfielder to reach 100 goals in the Premier League. Given how heavily Southampton relied on Letizia, they didn't even have him run during practices or games, so it was not surprising that his fitness wasn't always the best. He even admitted he'd often return overweight after pre-season training. That didn't stop him from performing at the highest level though. Letizia is Southampton's second highest scorer ever, only beaten by Mick Shannon, and he was named PFA Young Player of the Year in 1990. He was also particularly well known for his ability from the penalty spot, converting 47 out of 48 attempts, and is regarded as one of the best ever from the 12-yard line. Number 5. Benny McCarthy. As a result of his frequent fitness issues, Benny McCarthy only made 11 appearances while playing for West Ham. In terms of his professional life, his issues with weight management also resulted in a career setback when he was not selected to represent his country, South Africa, at the 2010 World Cup. Despite the fact that McCarthy had 37 goals to his name while playing for Blackburn, he could have had a much more successful career if he had maintained his fitness. After playing for South African team Orlando Pirates for a while, McCarthy announced his retirement in 2013. He was described as a supersized player who was devoted to filling his belly more than filling the net by Karen Brady, the vice chairman of the Hammers. He reportedly received a £200,000 fine deducted from his salary for failing to fulfill the club's fitness standards, and prior to leaving, he went 13 games without scoring. Number 4. Neville Southall. Neville Southall would undoubtedly be on the top of the list if it were arranged according to how fat they became, rather than how fat they were while playing football. That being said, throughout his playing days, and especially near the end of his career, Southall was far from being in peak physical condition. A superb goalkeeper who won 92 caps for Wales. Southall played the majority of his career as Everton's starting goalie. He was voted one of the top 10 goalkeepers in the world for a remarkable 4 seasons. He also won the Footballer of the Year honours in 1985 and is still the only goalkeeper to have done so. Even World Soccer magazine listed Southall as one of the top 100 players of the 20th century. Number 3. Adriano. Football players can leave fans wondering what would have happened if certain circumstances have gone their way. Adriano was once arguably the best forward in the world in the middle of the 2000s. He had all the skills necessary to become a centre forward of the highest caliber, including a cannon of a shot, good technique, aerial prowess, pace, and power. However, the Brazilian lost his drive to succeed after the passing of his father, with whom he was very close, and, as a result, he gained weight and all but forgot how to play the game. At the age of 27, his professional life was practically done. Just when it looked like the Emperor of Inter, as he was nicknamed, was developing into a fantastic goalscorer in the mold of his fellow countryman Ronaldo, a World Cup winner with Brazil, it was not to be though. As he let himself go and lost his bearings, maybe he did follow Ronaldo in some fashion, as sometime later he was pictured shortly after arriving in Brazil with a low-hanging stomach. Number 2. Diego Maradona. There's not enough adjectives in the world to describe this legend. He was so good, he made every other footballer in the world look terrible on the pitch. However, Maradona was also one of the most careless athletes the world has ever seen. He blatantly disregarded all the rules and regulations while he played and in his everyday life too. If any evidence was needed that football at its best is an art form, what Maradona could do with the ball sufficed. He could do with the ball what the greatest composers in history have accomplished with musical notes, what the finest painters have accomplished with a brush, and what the best writers have accomplished with words, pen and paper. And none of them were hindered by his overweight and unfit physique, which came at the latter end of his career. Coming in at number 1, Ronaldo. This is another story of would have and could have in football. He probably would have become the greatest footballer of all time if not for injuries. The Brazilian was the best forward in the late 1990s, but he was greatly plagued by serious injuries. He began gaining weight after his recovery and reached 96 kilograms when Fabio Capello was in charge at the Bernabeu. Ronaldo played and scored with such wonderful ease despite having a massive frame. His weight steadily increased till his retirement in 2011, with a long list of injuries progressively taking their toll on the phenomenal talent. Though he had a successful career, football fans are left to wonder and imagine what might have been if he was injury-free. Brazilian Ronaldo, the original Ronaldo, went on to score 414 goals in 616 games for club and country. So, which of these players did you enjoy watching the most? Let us know down in the comments section. Also, make sure to watch this video in the link, and if you like our content, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications. On the screen now should be another great video worth watching. So, click on that video and we will see you in the next one.